Excellent. Thank you very much. I was about to say, Mr. Maharaj, please don't let me do your job for you anymore, will you? You must interrupt me and tell me that you are here for a reason.
Yeah,
right? So forgive me for taking over at one point, but I just felt that Mr. Boudram and I seemed to have a little comfortable moments together when I thought he might find it easier if I was asking him questions.
And it may be because of the experience as a diver also.
Yeah, well, yes, mine is rather more limited than his. But anyway, Mr. Maharaj will be asking you some questions now. We got to the point, didn't we, where you're out of the pipe. All right, so I hope that's the worst part of your idea. Thank you.
Mr. Boudram, when you came out of the pipeline, you told all around you that the men in the pipeline were alive. Before that?
Before I reached out the chamber. Before I reached out the chamber, I came out the habitat. I asked Corey to find out from Andrew Farah how long I was down there for. Because as a diver, overstaying your time could lead to decompression sickness. So I was unaware of the time that I was down there for. I asked Ronald Ramut at the time. I think he told me, I believe he told me 6 o'clock, I'm not sure. All right? After he told me that, I asked him to tell Corey to find out from Andrew Farah how long I've been down here, and do I need a decompression chamber. Corey came back, told me, Andrew said, come out. I say, how long? He just said, come out. I said, go and ask him again if I need to go into a chamber. I ain't worked so hard to reach out here, then reach on the top of the surface and have decompression sickness to no stages of it. He went back, and Farah told him, I good, come out. Corey asked me if I could come out. I said, yeah. I went in the water, and I swim out. Corey swim out, reach up to the top. As I reach up to the top, I saw Andrew was on Petrotrin's. No, I lie. He was on top. Andrew was on Adventurer 1.
Which is the
boat?
Which is the boat?
Yeah, the small boat, aluminum boat.
Mm-hmm.
He and somebody else was there. I can't remember at this point of time. And they tried to pull me out of the water, and I told them, another hand, that hand broken. And they came out, and I tell as they pulled me up on the boat, my eyes fell on Nicholas Koroban. I see Nicholas Koroban. I said, Nicholas, go and save your father. Go and save your father. He's not far down. He's right behind me. Go and save your father. And Nicholas said, all right. I know Nicholas is a diver. Andrew asked me to turn around. I turn around and I lie down on my back now. I tell him, I say, boy, them fellas in there, let's go and save them. Let's go and save them. Andrew was like, all right, but you relax. I said, don't tell me to relax. To what? Better let me go back and save them, you know, because like all I want to do nothing. And he said, hey, relax yourself, you in shock. I said, I'm not in shock. Them fellas down there, boy. Let me get them. And then my eye fell on top of the chamber, Michael Koroban. Well, after seeing Michael Koroban, I know he's a very competent diver. And his father being there, I know he's a kind of no-nonsense type of guy to know him personally. He is family to me too. I say, Michael, go and save your father. And Michael said, all right. And he started to place back on foot on the habitat, on top of the habitat. And I was like, But what you doing, boy? Go and save your, I use some profanities, your father. No, boy, no. And then he run off the thing. At the same time, they transfer me, they wanted to transfer me from one boat to the other. So they transfer me. I think I cannot like walk for myself.
Okay, I know it's difficult to remember everything, but they transferred you. Did anyone take you to any decompression unit that afternoon?
Nobody.
No.
Nobody. Then I felt like nobody cared for me or my diving buddies. Nobody. I was supposed to see a dive specialist first, or at least while going through emergency, see a dive specialist and be treated into a chamber. Right? When they take me and they put me on the boat, I let them know, I say, hey, because like everybody was a set of headless chickens. I say, hey, cut off this wetsuit off of me and check to see if I seen any wounds, any lacerations, anything, any blood, anything bleeding, because my body numb, I don't know. And if I seen it, I had to stop the bleeding, I don't know. Right? After the cut open the wetsuit, they didn't see nothing. I believe it was either a Paria official or a Kenson official, somebody within Paria organization, assisted with cutting out the wetsuit. I say, now check my head, look under the oil, look good to see all there. See no busted, nothing here bleeding. Check good, and they check, they say, nah, you good. After they cut me out, I in my drawers. They take out my booty, that they cut out my booty, I believe. We reached the landing stage, and when we reached the landing stage, I hop off the boat and come onto the landing stage. They tried to put me on a stretcher 2-3 times. I was only sliding off because you could guess my whole body drenched down with oil, sludge.
Okay, they told you, well, you were not taken to a decompression unit, but where were you taken to?
The ambulance, we wait for the ambulance a few minutes, maybe about 3-4 minutes, the ambulance reached on the jetty. I had to hop up the stairs, went into the ambulance, they fastened me down, and they carried me to San Fernando General Hospital. While we was going there, I say, before that, well, after I talked to Andrew, and I tell them that I asked them to call my wife. Within all of this happening, for much hours I was down there, nobody find it proper to call my wife and tell my wife that I stuck in a pipeline or I'm missing. Nobody. My wife had to get third-hand information to know what's going on. And call my wife, I tell them, meet me at San Fernando Hospital. They said they carried me at San Fernando Hospital. When I reached San Fernando Hospital, no preparation was in place. I mean, San Fernando, so I did a good job, right? But they wasn't prepped. They didn't know is a guy coming with oil. They don't know what to treat him for if it's a dive accident. They didn't know anything. They didn't even know about the accident. I had oil on my skin for 3 days. 3 days I trying to take oil out of my skin. So I don't have the chemicals to take them oil off of my skin. When I settled up one thing, I was able to tell my wife what to bring to get the oil off of me. Oil all up inside my nostrils, all in my sinus. They had nothing, so don't get me wrong, so I did the best that they could do. But they wasn't prepped. It wasn't an advanced phone call stating we have an emergency with a diver in Paria. He coming in with oil, he coming in with nothing. No information, nothing. It's like if I get damage at home and getting rushed to the hospital.
And
I don't understand how I don't understand how an accident could happen in the biggest state-owned company in Trinidad and Tobago, and a phone call to the hospital at least wasn't made. You know, I had so much emotions to deal with, and anger is on the top of it. Because of this, no rescue attempt. For me, that's how I felt. No rescue attempt. When coming out, I was treated like a normal casualty patient, right? They didn't put anything in place. This oil on my skin for 3 days was sickening me.
At the San Fernando General Hospital, you spoke to the nurses, and they spoke to you.
I spoke to my wife. And
at the hospital?
Yeah, I saw my wife, and I felt, after seeing my wife, is when I felt, how to say it, is when I felt like I was rescued, after speaking to my wife. My mother recently passed, and she was the closest thing to comfort, you know, to me. So then I felt I was rescued after seeing my wife, and I just said, well, all right, I reach. I said, babe, take down some information from her. I explained to she the time I was inside the pipe. I told her to call a friend of mine, Brian Lzama. He suffered from decompression sickness and went through all the stages, so he have a lot of experience in it. I told she to ask him for Dr. Coe'S number to get on to him and ask advice. I told her all the relevant information that I could have remembered. I said liaise with Brian Lzama and Jerome. Jerome is an ex-friend, that's an alias name he has. Liaise with 2 of them, they would give you all the advice that you could need. Take it and make sure I get to a chamber, because I believe I might be suffering from decompression sickness. And decompression sickness could hit you from numerous stages. It could hit you instantly, it could hit you slowly, it could kill you, it could cripple you, it could just be a short pain. You can't tell unless you're under the scope.
How long did you stay in the hospital? At the hospital? At the San Fernando Hospital, how long they kept you?
I think it was 6 days. 6 or 7 days. I stayed here, and it was.
Okay. Mr. Budram, I want to ask you a very important question. If when you were rescued, either Paria or LMCS wanted to find out from you the condition in the pipe in order to effect a rescue, were you in a position to tell them what the condition of the pipeline was inside the pipe?
When I now come out the pipe, my mind and everything was focused and tuning to everything to save them fellas. If they had debriefed me there and then, that I get everything they could have given from me.
Including the condition in the pipe?
Everything I could have told them.
Right.
After seeing my wife and reaching to the hospital and telling she that last bit of information, I said, babes, you have to take it from here now. I saw my brother, I told my brother the same thing. I said, I need to relax my mind on overdrive right now. And after that, the doctors do the thing. They give me some painkillers, they do some things. I can't remember exactly. I remember they telling me that I had COVID, and then I started a fight. I tell them how I could have COVID. I now recovered from COVID. How could I have COVID? This is stupidity. All they're trying to kill me. I now come out of pipe and all they put me in a COVID room on top of that to reinfect me. This madness. You know, and they put me in a COVID room next to a woman dying, and a woman dying next to me that night. While in I had to fight my way outside that pipe. Right? Come out here. Right? Go in a hospital and put me in COVID. What I was trying to do, man? They didn't even, all right, if I had COVID, well, quarantine. These were Paria-Lmcs or whoever it is supposed to put something in place for me to be quarantined in a separate room at least. Give me that. If you believe I had COVID, I had to fight. I tried getting off out of bed 3 times in that COVID room and 4 long. The doctors didn't want to hear. One doctor, I can't remember his name right now, African guy, he saw me and he said, Chris, what's going on with you? I said, boy, I cannot stay in here. I'm not going to stay in here. I now fight COVID. And COVID was hard for me. I nearly died of COVID too. I'm not going to stay in this room. And he said, so what's the problem? I said, boy, I don't have COVID. I said, all you have to do an X test. I do have COVID. I can't remember they even doing a swab test on me and they tell me I had COVID. I can't remember that part, if they did it. Right? But I knew I didn't have COVID. I quarrel, my brother, my wife quarrel, everybody quarrel until they say, well, all right, do an external test. My brother did it in Victoria Labs, I believe, nursing home or something like that. And it came back negative. I spent, I don't know, 12 or 15 hours, nearly 18 hours, I would say, inside a COVID room. All that time, too, I'm waiting for, because I get in contact with Coe'S Ali through my wife's phone and tell him that I need to go in a chamber because my wife get in contact with Dr. Coe'S and Dr. Coe'S tells she that he need decompression sickness treatment. You need to go in a chamber and she go check up. Dr. Coe'S now come and tell me that, Mr. Bujam, I talking to you, and I talking to you for free. Nobody not saying other clients and things to do. I trying to get advice about other things to do. I said, all right, nobody are paying you nothing. He said, no. I said, all right. I called Kazim Ali. I said, Kazim, what are you really doing me, boy? They're trying to kill me here. Why nobody now organizing this? Kazim said, well, boy, he didn't know. And he called Coe'S. They settled the matter. I called back Coe'S. Coe'S told me, yes, he working on it. They prepare a chamber for me in La Romaine by all support. Right? Up to now, up to today, the ambulance reached to carry me there. When the ambulance reached, I lie. When the ambulance did reach, it's because Dr. Coe'S called and said, tell the doctor that the time passed for something. If something had to happen to me, if I had to suffer from decompression sickness, I would have already been showing signs and symptoms of it. That meaning I would have already died if it was to that stage. Or paralyzed, or maybe.
I understand. Okay.
And when the ambulance did reach, the ambulance refused to take me because when they hear I had COVID, they say, well, the patient had COVID, we wasn't aware of that. Right? I called back Randy because my wife get Randy number. He's an Petrichin person.
Mr. Randy as well.
I don't know the title. I call him back and I say, Mr. Randy, what going on here? What going on? I thought the time I sent in the ambulance said they're not picking him up. Right? He said, all right, I will see what I could do. I call him back and the phone went unanswered. Maybe 100 times I tried calling him because I panicking and then COVID. After fighting for my life there, I had to come and defend myself inside COVID here too, on a virus that I cannot see, I cannot fight.
Okay. Whilst you were in the pipeline and you were coming out and you had promised the men that they would be rescued, did you see anything in that pipeline during the time you were in that pipeline to obstruct anyone from coming into that pipeline to rescue the men?
If there's anything to obstruct them, how I come out? How I come out?
Chris, first of all, thank you for sharing your story with us. I think it's a remarkable story. But building off of Ramesh's, what I'm hearing from Ramesh, what I want to ascertain is really, when you came out, any person, whether LCMS or Paria, attempted to get a debrief of what happened in the pipeline. That's one.
I was begging him to stay, but I didn't want to leave this side. I was begging him to stay, but I said, well, let me go back for you, man, and myself. I tell him that I'm sure if I would be here if I didn't go back at least 100% sure that nobody can tell me about all that shit about can rescue people. I dive in a pipe before that and born inside the riser on same boat 6. I went inside that on that pipe herself, call him Piper. I went in that and put in a soft paper gasket because we couldn't install it from the outside because the surgeons was slamming against it. I went in the pipe on that scuba herself. Paria talk about scuba and scuba for all the years we diving in there. Scuba, every company coming there was scuba for all the years.
Can you help me with this, please? And it follows on from what Mr. Wilson was saying. When you were being ferried in the ambulance to go to hospital, all right, did anybody accompany you in the ambulance? Now, obviously, there was the ambulance staff, but was there anybody from Paria or
no,
from LMCS?
No, sir.
Or anybody?
There was headless chickens up there.
Well, all right. Pause for a minute, please, because I understand your anger and your emotion. I do understand. I just want to be clear so that we know what we can take this into account. All right? Have you got your napkin? Yes, good. So I think what we're after is to know whether or not there was an attempt at trying to get from you as much information as possible, as soon as possible. And obviously, people would have thought it was necessary. Just a minute. People would have thought it was necessary to take you to hospital, but there was nothing to stop someone going with you in the ambulance to speak to you. Do you see what I mean?
I know that,
right.
sir.
What I understand from what you're saying is that there wasn't anybody to accompany you in the ambulance to take you to hospital.
The only person asked me anything was Andrew.
Andrew?
Andrew asked me.
Right.
I believe Andrew asked me, how far they inside? And I tell him, 5 is not too far. The rest of them, I don't know.
Right. And that aside, do you remember if you were put on a call with Mr. Colin Piper, a man called Randolph Archbold, and Mushtaq Mohammed? Do you know if you were put on a phone call with them later that night?
I have no
recollection.
Speaking
right.
to anybody from Paria. The only person other than Randy for the ambulance and Kazim Ali.
Right.
My wife and my wife was filtering phone calls also while I was in the hospital because a lot of media people and etc.
Of course. But you have no recollection of having a conversation at about 10 o'clock that night?
And I very, very much doubt.
Right.
I would say that them fellas die. Because I come out and I tell everybody they was living. In front of don't have nobody could deny that I said everybody was living. Who was there?
I don't think that's...
You could ask the whole hospital staff. Because throughout this whole period I was just breaking down in the hospital. Ask any one of the doctors who see about me, they will tell you. Any one of the nurses, everybody, they want to know.
Mr. Boudram, I think everybody accepts that you made that clear. I don't think that's a challenge. I just wanted to be clear in my own mind about whether you were approached, do you follow me, by anybody from LMCS or I mean, after you were put in the ambulance, all right? Anybody from LMCS or from Paria to speak to, and you have no recollection of that.
No.
I'm putting to you that there was it's alleged that there was a conversation at around 10 o'clock that night, but you have no recollection of that. All right. Thank you very much.
I want to read something that Mr. Piper said in a conversation he said he had with you at paragraph 131 of the witness statements bundle, 1368. At page 1368. I asked Boudram how he was doing. Mr. Boudram responded by saying, Mr. Piper, I want to say up front, I ain't think them fellas make it, or words to that effect. The phone was placed on speakerphone mode, and Mr. Boudram's words were audible to persons around. Mr. Boudram then indicated that he crossed two welded sections on the way, two welded seams on the way out of the pipeline. He said he then crossed blacks who was unresponsive. He indicated that 4 of them were making their way out of the pipeline, and they were helping Kazim Ali Jr., who had a broken leg and arm. He then said they came across an air pocket, after which there was 1 person less. He then said they came across a second air pocket, after which they lost Kazim Jr. He further stated that Faizi was with him until he reached the elbow, and then Faizi said he could make it. Mr. Budram did not ask during that conversation whether anyone else was rescued from the pipeline. Did you tell Mr. Piper that?
I did not, at least to my recollection. And not to my recollection, I would not say something like that. You could even, how the series of how we say it happened. When I cross blacks, at no point at time, I was in front of blacks all the time. At no point at time, I felt blacks' body, I saw blacks while inside that pipe.
So specifically, you didn't tell Mr. Piper, I want to say up front, I ain't think them fellas make it.
That not making sense, Mr. Ramesh.
Okay. Okay. Now,
why I could just call Piper and say, just so, hey, up front by them fellas dead, boy. That we trying to say, I say?
Okay. All right, I want to ask you another question. Now, this must have been a very harrowing experience for you, but I want you to try and help us, okay? You, according to your account, you promised your colleagues, your friends, that you would come back or you would get help for them to come back to be rescued. If when you came out, you had the energy and the strength from what you saw in that pipeline, would you have gone into the pipeline to rescue them?
Yes, and I will tell you this from my experience. Even if I was not in the situation and I was a diver outside the situation, inside the pipeline is safer than outside the pipeline. Inside the pipeline, there is no predators, there is no currents, there is nothing to fall on you inside a pipeline. You understand? I have been inside a pipeline before, as I just stated. And going in there, all you need to do is take your tank off your back. And you're going in there. You carry down a rope. Or if you could, even less if you could get a hooker, you cannot use a hat. You cannot use a hat. If you had tried to use a hat, when you end up in there, you end up in difficulties. Because the weight of the hat, when you reach in the air pocket, you would not be able to raise up your head to assist or help anybody.
What is a hat?
The surface supply hat to put on your head and for communications and things, because I was reading that they say you needed that to do the rescue. I challenge anyone to do it out of water, in a pipe, or in water, to lie down in that pipe with a hat on, with hose on, and communication to go down there and try to perform a rescue. I challenge anyone to do that. And I could try, but
And Mr. Budram, if you had gone in the pipe to do the rescue after the event, and if you had gone in to do the rescue, and you met a tank blocking, what would you have done?
I would have done what I did while I was coming out, damaged and bruised, passed over the tank.
Passed over the tank. Now, I borrowed that exhibit. Assuming this represents the pipeline, right? There is a tank, okay?
A tank is approximately 6 inches in diameter. So if you have something around 6 inches, you could put it there and you could see anybody, up to the biggest man in this courtroom, could pass through there with that tank there.
So you could go over the tank, or you could go on the side of the tank?
You could.
Now, I want to show you on the screen the mechanical plug and the inflatable plug. And I want to ask you a few questions about it. Is that okay?
Can you see this screen all right? Or do you want us to tilt it towards you a little?
I could see.
Probably has to tilt it, I don't know.
You can see it all right?
Yeah, I think I could see it.
All right.
I think there's one above there. It might be easier for you.
I've seen this one just fine.
Okay.
Very familiar with the plugin. I don't even need a diagram. Ask me a question.
Well, I think the ideal is that everybody can see it. We're not all as familiar with that. For me, it's a complete novelty to see this plug, and it would help me to be able to see it when you're giving your evidence. Do you see?
I understand.
You see, Mr. Boudin, when you talk about a plug, one would normally think it's something just to pull out, and it could be done quickly. So I want you to explain something to us, right? This is a photograph of the mechanical plug that you talked about, correct? If you had to take out that plug, as you all did it that day, right, as you saw it was taken out, how long will it take to take out the plug? Because you said you have to unbolt and you have to spanner or whatever it is. How long would it take you?
Yusuf and I did it in about, well, I don't want to say Yusuf and I, it was a team effort. 4 of us did it in approximately 30 minutes, give or take.
30 minutes?
Yeah.
30?
Yeah.
How many bolts are on there?
Sorry?
How many bolts were on it?
Bolts?
Yes.
I think it had 22, somewhere around it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I check it.
Right.
15 I check it. Depending on what size this plug is to, the bigger the plug is, the more bolts it will have.
Right. I mean, I have no idea whether this is just an example, as I understand it. Is that right, Mr. Maharaj?
I understand as is this the type of plug that
it's the same type, but what I'm saying, the bigger diameter the pipe is the plug is the more bolts it will have.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, you know, the wider the plug, the more bolts there are around it. And do I understand it right? That if you tighten those bolts, the rubber between the two metal plates spreads out.
Correct. So the bolt compress the two metal plates and cause the rubber to spread.
Yes.
And cause a seal.
A seal.
Yeah.
Right. And you'd have to, in order to release that from the pipe, you have to undo each bolt, do you?
Correct. You have to do it in sequence.
You said that in sequence. You said it would take about 30 minutes.
Oh, maybe a little longer, but yeah, right. Yeah, nothing less than that.
Nothing less. So 30 minutes plus, anyway. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Maharaj.
Thank you. The inflatable plug, which is the plug which was under the mechanical plug. I know when it was started to be deflated, then the accident occurred.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you, if the accident did not occur, how long it would have taken for that plug to be deflated? About?
That won't take long because that is air. So as you open the valve, as you press it, and it's slack enough, it may not go, it don't need to go right down to be extracted. Once it come off the walls of the pipe, it would be extracted, you know? So that wouldn't take long to take off the...
I want to ask you about that, if I may, please. You see that on the example that we have on the screen, that there are 2 rings that protrude from what would be the top of the plug. Am I right?
Yeah, that is for...
So when you're deep, and in the middle there's like what might be described as a nipple or a valve.
Yeah.
And is that, if you activate that in some way, does that release the air?
Right. So
those of us who are familiar perhaps with inflating a car tire.
Correct,
if
yeah.
you take you let the air out of the tire, that would be the same sort of effect.
Correct, yeah.
So once it's put in place, it's inflated. That creates the seal.
Right.
And then to break the seal, you deflate it.
Correct. So
But is it quite heavy?
it has some weight. It has some weight because it large, and then the rubber is something like the same material as a tire.
Yeah.
You know?
So like a tire, it'd be
yeah.
quite heavy to handle.
Yeah.
So those rings on the top,
Right.
do they, I mean, did you have to connect those rings to something in order
Correct.
to pull the plug out?
Correct. So we had the what we call a dead man is just a cable connected to those rings and connected to under the mechanical plug. Right?
So it's connected to the mechanical plug?
Correct. So it's like a dead man. When we call a dead man something that you chain down, it's
Right.
just like a how to put it?
A sort of lever?
No, it's a cable. It's a wire rope connected from there to the underneath. In case of you slacken it down, it will fall out. So when you take out the mechanical plug, we take that out, right, and we'll hook it up.
The mechanical plug?
No, after taking out the mechanical plug,
Right.
we'll take that cable now,
Right.
and hook it up on top of your head.
And is that
so
what you
when
did?
you air it down and it it deflates, it don't fall down.
Yes, but is that what you did?
Yes, we did. We did that.
So
and
let me, I just need to understand, it's quite important, you see. You've taken the mechanical plug out, right? You told us earlier that you put that on the outside of the habitat.
correct.
There's a cable that's attached to those two eyes on the top of this plug, correct?
Right.
On those eyes that we
Yeah,
can see, there's
yeah.
little eyelets. So there's a cable that passes through both of them, or two separate cables?
In this instance, I think they had one.
Right.
They had
Passing
one.
through both,
Yeah.
or just through one?
Just through one,
One side,
right?
right?
And it came up and it was hooked onto the mechanical.
Right.
So when we take out the mechanical plug now, as a safety feature, so this don't fall down while deflating it.
Yes.
We take it and we connect it overhead.
Right.
Right? After connecting it overhead on a shackle to one of the eyes welded into the habitat, right? There's no, which part is in that place there for insect or whatever you want to term it as. There were a hose, we had a hose connected to it with a gauge on top, right? The gauge telling you how much pressure we have in it, right?
In the
tube,
right?
right? And there were also a valve to open and close, which they, as I understand, because I didn't install it, as I understand, as Rishi Nagasa told me, they take off the lever because they didn't want the lever to get damaged or open by mistake. So we then needed a crescent wrench or a spanner to open the lever. Right? In between that, on that same thing, there's an next insect on that gauge where you could press. And
insect? You mean like a valve?
Like a valve on a
Right.
tire to press and deflate it also. I wasn't aware of that. And that is when Kazim went for the spanner and bringing back the spanner to me, right? Is when I think it's blacks started deflated.
Right.
The thing, but it'll take a way longer period to like releasing air from an tire. It'll take a long period to do that than just using a valve and opening it fully.
Right, I understand. But when this happened, just before this vortex was created and you were all dragged into the pipe, was that plug held up by a cable and attached to one of the eyes inside
Yes, sir.
the habitat?
Yes, sir.
So, were you aware of whether that plug went into the pipe or was still there?
It can be still there. When I came out, it wasn't there. And for there to have a vortex suction, it couldn't come out. So it had to go forward.
So that I'm clear about this,
The wire
is it your understanding that the cable must have broken and
Correct.
pushed the plug in?
Correct.
What sort of, are we talking about some what kind of cable are we talking about? Something small wire, or is it?
I think it was either quarter-inch or 3/8, because it's not there for more strength really. It's there just to
stop it falling in.
From falling. Right. So I think it was like quarter-inch or 3/8. I'm not sure.
All right. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Maharaj.
Mr. Budram, you said in your statement that whilst you all were doing the works, Paria had a representative topside monitoring the works.
Yes. They had more than one.
They had more than one.
Yeah. One person was frequently monitoring the air quality that we were breathing in the chamber also, in the habitat. And
monitoring that and monitoring to ensure that you all complied with the method of work and what was approved.
Correct. And at all times, we had to apply with Parias because we working in their compound and we doing their job. Over all years, at any point at time, Paria see something, they stop the work and they had a conversation, wherever is the plan, and we get back on it. Just like when we had to stop the work to do the carbon testing to get permission from Paria to go forward or to cancel the job. You understand?
So, from your experience, if you were working there for LMCS doing works, and you were doing works which not accordance with what they agreed to, they would stop the work?
Of course.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
From when you first started to remove that mechanical plug to the point in time when the vortex then dragged you all in, what sort of time are we talking about? From start to finish of that part of the project?
From the period of time we start unbolting the mechanical plug.
Right from the beginning, when you start to unbolt the mechanical plug, to the point in time when the water's come up and drags you into the pipe, how long are we talking about? I'm not going to hold you to it, but give me some idea.
At least an hour and a half to 2 hours. At least an hour and a half, I would say, because remember when we take out the plug, I came out to ask if the carbon testing was done on boat 5, right? And then we come back in and we was doing the thing, but while taking out a mechanical plug, right, after we unbolt it and release it and thing, right, we had to jack it up, right? It's not a light thing.
No.
The mechanical plug was rather heavy, right? We had to jack it up, guide it down, move the scaffolding, bring it between the pipe and the chamber, right? And then fasten it to the outside of the habitat.
So did you have to put your scuba kit back on?
Correct.
Go out through the bottom.
Faizi and I did that.
With this thing that weighs a lot. It didn't drag you down to the bottom.
Well, we had it hooked up onto the chain block.
Already,
right? So after we just tie it onto the.
Gotcha. But between an hour and a half and 2 hours, from start to conclusion of that part of the project.
Estimatedly, yeah.
Estimated. I appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Again, I'm sorry, Mr. Maharaj.
That's all right, madam. I want to show you your statement signed on the 19th of October 2022. Yeah, it's at page 1569, particularly at page 1569, paragraph 22. It's volume 4, 1270. It's 12 in volume 4. Okay. 1569. I wonder if the orderly would. Yeah. Paper bundle.
Go ahead. I have a good memory on my statement too. I think fabricated in it.
I know.
I don't need it.
I know. I just want to show it to you. And you said in that statement, we were told the following jobs would be done that morning.
Which paragraph are we on, please?
Paragraph 22.
Paragraph 22.
On page
right.
1569.
Yes. Do you have that, Mr. Boudreau?
Yeah, we are told
Yeah.
the following job would be done.
We were told the following jobs would be done that morning on the 25th of February 2022 by Kazim Ali Jr. in the presence of Paria officials.
Yes.
Extract the pipe from the top of the habitat, install the new one into the habitat, add air to the habitat to remove water. All the divers would enter the habitat. The divers would take off the blank flash. The divers would unbolt the mechanical plug. The divers would wait for carb testing to be done on boat 5. Carb testing would then be done on boat 6. After testing the weld, the divers would extract the inflatable plug and install the new riser. Then the job would be done.
Correct.
Are those true and correct?
Correct. The only when I meant by all the divers, we were talking about the four of us. Kazim Ali Jr.
Sorry, I think
were
it's my
always
mistake. It's four
to
divers.
stay on the outside and interveniently check on us to make sure none of us, because it's a confined space we're working in, to make sure none of us over fatigue or moving anyway.
I think it was my mistake. We said you said the divers, so I'm glad you explained it. At paragraph 24, on that same page, in terms of safety briefing, we were told by LMCS safety officer in the presence of Paria's safety officer, Mr. Dobson, that the hazard was malfunction of equipment, our tanks had air, and our gauges were working. We were also warned about slips and trips and the system for fatigue, which was that anyone who became fatigued whilst working in the habitat would be taken out to get some rest. Next paragraph, the safety briefing which you were given did not identify any hazard or entry into the pipe. Any hazard of entry into the pipe. We were briefed on potential hazards of cutting. We did not use any torches or grinders. There was a fire extinguisher in the habitat. There is a gas monitor and a Paria official who was regularly testing the air quality to make sure that the air was safe and breathable. Are those matters correct? In what you said in your statement?
Correct.
And true and correct?
They are true and correct. They could also have been a few more details into the safety briefing that I may have left out or not remembered in the safety briefing.
You want to tell us about any other thing that they may have told you and you now remember? To be honest, after that event happening there, my mind on recollecting every little detail before the incident, it's hard. What I could recollect, every detail, because I've been living it every single night since, every single hour since, is inside the pipe and coming out the pipe. Well, I think I owe a duty to ask specifically. Did they ever tell you anything of a risk of you being sucked into the pipeline?
No, they did not.
Much obliged, Chairman. I have no further questions.
Thank you. I'll now permit any cross-examination anyone wants to undertake. Can I have some idea, please, as to how long you think you might be, Mr. Gilbertson?
About half an hour, just over that, depending on, of course, the answers.
Of course, yes. I'll ask others to think about how long they're going to be before, once you're concluded. I would like, if we can, to conclude this evidence before we break for lunch. I appreciate that that's a tall order at the moment, but I would be willing to sit and will sit for an extra half an hour so that Mr. Boudram could go, and rather than having to have lunch and then having to come back again. So can I ask you all, please, to be as brief as you feel you can be. I appreciate you will have questions, but please be as brief as you can be, with an eye to the clock, in the hope that we might be able to achieve that. If we can't, we can't. But I appreciate your cooperation where we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Could Could I remain seated, at least for this witness?
Of course you can, yes. Anyone's entitled to remain seated if they wish. I know Mr. Maharaj likes to stand, but anybody else can remain seated, of course.
Morning, Mr. Budam.
Morning, sir.
Thank you for being here. Could you help us as to what is described as the Carver test? What is that? I've been hearing the term.
To my knowledge, it's a test to check if the weld is done properly.
Right.
To make sure the weld itself has no leaks or cracks. Or
There are no leaks or cracks. That's the well, in this case, in the habitat, the well that you all did to receive the new
correct,
riser.
the flange. Yeah.
The flange.
Yeah.
Yes. And that test was, when it could not be done, they dispensed with it and decided to proceed.
Correct.
Yeah. When you bring the riser onto that flange, is metal onto metal, isn't it?
With a gasket between.
But is there a need to exercise caution that there may be sparks when the two metal meets metal?
When they're installing it?
Yes.
Not really. The sparks is very relevant. It have no sparks, you know. No, you don't get any sparks. No.
There's a precaution that if you're using metal tools or you're installing metal against metal, that they likely
right.
to be sparks.
That is if they're using active gas line and all these kind of things. Right. This is oil. Right. And this is in this term, this was a condemned line for a certain amount of years.
Right.
And what I believe, I'm not sure because anyway, I shouldn't talk what I'm not sure about. So.
Okay. Thanks for that. What's the purpose of installing the two barriers, the mechanical and the inflatable?
Okay, so the mechanical plug is there to prevent debris when doing hot work or any type of work to fall on the inflatable, because the inflatable, as we say, is like a tire, is a more vulnerable plug, but it's there to give you a proper seal. So the inflatable plug is to prevent any gas or residual gas from escaping, and the mechanical plug is there to keep the debris when cutting or using any hot work from falling in to damage the inflatable.
The inflatable plug. And the inflatable plug is to also prevent hydrocarbons from coming up in the line into the habitat.
Correct. But mind you, when you're on, even if you take out the plug, usually, right?
Which plug? When you say the plug?
The both of them, yeah. Right? Usually, we put the plug against liquid, right? So you pump out up to just where you need, and with the liquid stop, you put the inflatable, right? Yes. So even if you take out the inflatable plug, because the habitat in a positive pressure, right, it's very unlikely for anything to come up because there's a pressure on it. Right. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Right. You're familiar with the permission to work permit to work, PTW.
Yeah.
That Paria had.
Yeah.
Because you had been recently trained in that.
Correct.
Shortly before this job.
Correct.
Right. The PTW is, you understand it to be the permit to work, and that tells you what you are carded to do for that day.
Correct. It don't tell you what you're carded to do. It permits you.
It permits you.
For what you have to do. Correct.
Right.
The toolbox form or the GSA, them kind of thing may have steps in what you're going to do.
Right. So
but the permit to work is only something to permit you to go and do the job.
It just allows you to work. And
correct.
What guides you is the toolbox form.
Correct.
Yes.
And, sorry.
or what we may call the toolbox meeting minutes. Did you sign the toolbox
Yes, sir.
for that day?
Yes, sir.
25th of February,
Yes, sir.
2022 at 9:15 a.m.?
Yes, sir. At 9:15? Earlier than that, we signed that, I believe.
Earlier than that, okay. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, in fairness, could I ask that the witness be shown 10-1070 in the core bundle? 1070.
Yes, of course.
That's the toolbox meeting form. Core bundle, the core bundle. Core bundle 1. Core bundle 1. It's 2. This site has it as 1. 107. Can't be volume 2. Right, it's on the screen. So. Yes. At number 5, that's your signature. Well, I don't know if you could see
I've
from there.
seen my signature. I can't recognize the number it on though.
Okay, it's the first. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
correct.
your signature.
Correct.
Right. And if you could go up to the line of topics discussed. No, next, Derek, thank you. I see COVID-19 protocols, communication, choppy water, weather condition, slips awareness, slippery awareness.
Okay.
There was never any discussion about, well, in fairness to you, do you know what delta P is?
I do.
Yes. There was no discussion surrounding delta P.
No, sir.
Right.
The idea of nothing. Go ahead. I apologize.
Okay. A delta P would arise if those plugs were removed at the wrong time, wouldn't it? Or is that outside your knowledge?
To my knowledge, again, I'm not supposed to say what I don't know, but to my knowledge, usually how we do the job is that we put the plug against liquid. So there's a force behind it. You understand? So a delta P was unable to happen because the conditions would not have been correct if the line were filled with liquid.
Right.
That's how we usually do it.
But in fairness, oh, sorry.
I wasn't there when the plugs was installed.
Yeah. That's what I was taking in fairness, because you did say that you weren't there days before because you were on COVID
Correct.
quarantine. So you can't help us as to the condition at the time when the plugs were installed, whether they were installed, as you say, they ought to be installed in a particular way.
Correct.
Yes. Did they have any discussions about the removal of the plugs at that toolbox meeting?
Yes, we did.
Right. Yeah, I know.
On the toolbox meeting is also to address the stages in how we would do the job.
Right.
And if anybody in the team had any concerns, we'd bring it forward. And to make the job easier, if I had an idea in doing something or somebody else had an idea, we would have navigated and explored it.
But those discussions with respect to the removal of the plugs, I cannot find it in the toolbox meeting minutes.
I can't account for that. I'm not the person filling out the form, sir.
Right. Can you... You don't know who filled out this form? Or who, well, first, who presented it to you to sign? Do you recall?
So it will be all of us standing in a circle or a similar form.
Yes.
And the safety officer would say we have to say, the supervisor will say we have to say, and after the meeting, they'll pass the form around for somebody to sign it, to say who was the person take it out the full and pass it around? I can't say that. I know it was passed around and I read it and signed it.
Okay. Who was giving the instructions as to the steps to be taken to remove those plugs?
Kazim Ali Jr.
He's the one who was telling, I think, use your words, what we are going to do and how we are going to do it. I think that's what he said this morning.
But when the toolbox meeting, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is this the first time you were doing a job like this?
No, sir.
How long before this, if you can recall, that you did something similar?
I did a job like this twice before. I can't recall how long ago, maybe about 2-3 years, I'm not sure. And then one like about 6 or 7 years ago.
Was it with LMCS?
Both jobs with LMCS. Previous to this one, both of them with LMCS.
And was Delta P ever discussed in any of those tool meetings and those jobs?
No, sir. Not to my recollection.
But Delta P is a serious risk. Well, sorry to...
Well, again, it's a risk if you don't do the proper steps. If the line was empty, there's a risk for Delta P. If the line was full, to my knowledge and understanding though,
Right.
if the line was full, it would not have the differential of pressure because water is like a type of solid that level is liquid, but you know it's dense.
Right. I'm interested in a tool you described this morning. I think you described it as a T.
A capital
T. Capital T. How long is that tool? Approximately.
I think it was about 2 feet. About 2 feet long.
2 feet long. And that is to remove the bolts and the mechanical plug.
Correct.
Right.
Remember, in a confined space in the pipe.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. I appreciate that. Yeah, I want the bearing to keep it. What number is that? Mr. Chairman, that document could be taken down. I wish to have document 1073 of the core bundle again.
Just before you take that document down, rather than having to come back to it again, would you mind if I just want to know who Victor Dilpaul is? Did you know who that was?
That's our safety.
He's your safety officer?
Yeah.
Works for LMCS, does he?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Could I ask for a quick washroom break?
Yes, of course you can. Yes. Please, would you mind taking for a quick break? I shan't rise. We can wait for a few minutes. Yeah. Please do. Ronnie. rather suspect he won't have looked at anything. It's going to rely on the briefing. That's why you have a briefing. All right. Mr. Gilbertson, apparently we need a minute or two for the technician to get this system working. Is this resolvable in the next few minutes or not?
You see, doing it that way. Doing it that way. He will show him. He will show him. And then yes. 10 on. Yes. 1074, please, Mr. Chairman. Core bundle. 1074. Paragraph 20.
Is this going to work now? Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bedouin, could you look at the screen? You said in your statement that you had seen, you had seen the permits to work at the toolbox meeting on the 25th of February, 2022. It's gone again.
The hard copy bundles now, and I apologise to the public because they'll not be able to see these documents. Can we have a hard copy so that we can get on, please? And can someone fix this system? It was down yesterday as well. So can we get it working, please?
Yes. Proceed.
Please, Mr. Gilbertson, I apologise that it's not working properly, but we all have hard copies, and if the public want to look, they can access it by the internet, and they can find it that way.
Mr. Bedouin, do you recognise that permits to work or work permit for the 25th of February 2022? As you said in your statement that you had seen on the toolbox meeting.
Yeah, that's looking like it.
Right. And you saw that there are specific tasks set out in that.
Yeah, but remember, I understand where you're coming at, but remember that I working under instructions. I am an employer.
Yes.
An employee, sorry.
Yes.
You understand? And if my employer give me instructions, we go about doing it with the instructions, right? And what we did and why we didn't deviate no way or the other from the plans.
You didn't deviate from
the plans.
When you say the plans, you mean this work permits to work?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
The permit to work, as I tell you, does give you that it will be detailed in every task. Everything you have to do is just guidelines in what you're about to do.
But you agree to deal with the main tasks, the main things.
Yeah.
Now, can you look under the section requirements for equipment installation and clearance?
Right.
That's the section 1.
Right, yeah.
Yes. You see isolated by blind, flanges, blanks, spool removal, no. You see that there?
Isolated by blanks, flanges, right?
Yes.
Spool removal,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
Right, but
and across in the next column, the comments, you see line drained.
Before we go to that, yeah, but look on the permit, say removal of solid blanks.
Yes. Yes. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Right under that, you see cleared of process, hazardous material. Yes.
Cleared process, hazardous material.
Yes.
Yeah.
And across in the comments, migration barrier.
Migration barrier, yeah.
To be used. And migration barriers are another term for the mechanical plug and the inflatable plug.
Right.
Those are referred to commonly as migration barriers.
Right, we did use it, yeah.
Right. But I now agree with you to take you up further that you were taking me to earlier with respect to specific tasks. That speaks about removing the flange and to install the riser. You see that?
Yeah.
But you would agree with me that it took me to that there is nothing there with respect to removing the barriers, otherwise called mechanical inflatable plugs. You agree with that?
So, answer me this. If we
No, I just want to deal with what is here first.
If we install the riser, how would we get out the inflatable plug at that depth? From on top, how would I get that out? Because remember, going into the pipe,
yes,
is not part of the scopes. You're not supposed to go in the pipe unless you get special clearance to do that.
Right.
So how would I remove that?
Yes. Maybe we'll have technical people come in who would answer that. I'm just a lawyer.
Okay.
Only.
Okay.
But what I was dealing with is where you had taken me earlier.
But we had to read between the lines too, so.
Yeah, we go do that. I just was dealing with where you had taken me to, that there is nothing there in these tasks to be performed that instructed the barriers to be removed. You agree with that?
Well, as far as I read, and I don't know if this is the original document, or as far as I read, yeah.
The Commission will ensure that. Because I got it. Right. But you agree that the migration barriers that they're referring to there to be used are the two barriers, right? We call it barriers, but is the mechanical plugs
so,
and the
so you understand this permit don't be revised every day. They just make a permit for the job, and every day they just have a signing in the back for every other day. So this permit is the general permit for the whole job.
Yeah, but this permit is dated the 25th. You realize up on the...
Because that's when we went back to start the job, right? But now this permit, right, does come with our next document in the back with signatures for days, and it have all the managerial signatures, all the signatures who give permission to do the job.
Yes.
And in the back, right, every day while you're on this job, they're giving you the same permit and they're signing it.
Right.
Right? So this being used, using the mechanical plug and the thing plug, right, is for all the same work prior.
Yes, but the permit is speaking about where every day they'll have signatures would be have an earlier date than the 25th.
So if I explain to you how Paria does work, or Petritrade, or whatever, right? Honestly, they pull this permit for when they start the job before, and they just bring it, update the date, and give them to sign it. Right? This is how they just do it.
But a permit is issued, because remember you went on the training.
Yes, sir.
Permit is issued every day for that day to allow you to work.
The same permit. The same permit for the job that will be issued every day. And as the day go by,
yes,
they just have, if they have any changes or alteration in it, they may have a note or they may add something onto it. Or most of the time,
it's the same permit that they just keep printing.
That they just printing, regurgitating, and you sign it.
Okay. Well then, could you turn the page to 1075?
1075.
The 13th of February, 2022. That is for the same job, isn't it? As you told us?
I was not working. I don't have a recollection of working on the 13th of February,
yeah,
so I cannot.
Sorry, I don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you were there because we know that you had COVID and all of that.
So then I can't say it's for the same job.
Well, let's look at the permit. To install migration barriers, hyperbaric chamber, cut and remove some section. You realize this is the same job we are talking about?
Correct.
And this is the permit.
But because of the pause, I apologize.
Yeah, this is the permit that was used to install the barriers.
Right. Now, if the job was continuous, we'd have seen everything on this permit. But because the job had a pause between it, is where they would change the permit and update, if so. But if the job was continuous, this would have been the same permit in the back, signed behind it, to the date.
Right. So fortunate first, it wasn't continuous. This permit, you agree, provided for the installation of the migration barriers. As you see highlighted there, the reddish part.
I can't agree to this. I don't know this. I didn't sign this permit.
I know.
So
you don't sign permits. I know. But you agree that this is to the installation of the barriers that you spoke about that were installed before you came back on the job. Is that so?
Possibly. And the course I did with Paria allows me to sign permits.
Okay. All right. But you didn't sign any on this job?
No, sir.
All right. I want to go back up to the page before, 1074. Under section 3, certificates checklist required. You see that heading?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hot Works certificate. What are those?
It's a permit.
No. A permit that permits you
to do hot work in itself. So everything, there's a general permit, right? And then for certain specifications of work like confined space, hot works, these kind of things will have a separate permit for it.
Right.
So it will be, if you're doing hot work with this permit, you will have permit with the general permit. You have hot work with the general permit.
Right, so they have a general permit, and if the hot works are part of the works to be done, they will issue a separate
Correct, or
thing called a
confined
hot
space,
works.
or height, or anything to do with height, that kind of thing, yeah.
A hot works certificate.
Correct.
And
permit, yeah.
hot works certificate would require certain precautionary steps to be employed because it's hot works.
Correct.
And one such step would be to take precaution to eliminate the presence of hydrocarbons.
Correct.
And one way of eliminating...
Or if not eliminating, maybe controlling to a safe working environment. Yeah.
Right. And one way of controlling hydrocarbons entering, for example, the habitat would be barriers. Wouldn't that be so?
Yes, sir.
Right.
But that day we were not doing any hot work, sir.
I ain't get it yet. But dealing with the procedure, because you could help us with this.
Okay.
One way of keeping out hydrocarbons from the chamber would be to keep the barriers in place.
Correct. The inflatable plug is for that reason.
Right. This permits to work. You agreed had a hot work certificate 2634 issued on this job.
Yeah.
Right. And you also agreed that one of the precautionary steps inserted on this permit would be keeping the barriers in place.
No, sir.
Well, isn't it there?
The permit is there for a wide variety of reasons, right? In terms, as I explained to you.
Which permit?
This permit, the general permit,
Yeah.
right? They would add hot work on it because they know it have hot works to do on the job, right?
Yeah.
Not meaning hot works to do in the habitat, right? It could have hot works to do on the barge. It could have hot works to do on the boat, on the boat. You understand? So in relation for the job is not only in the hyperbaric chamber, in the habitat. The job is entail the whole thing.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, Mr. Bodum, I understand that. But we already accept that this permit was to the 25th. At least this permit was to the 25th of February.
Correct.
But you said to us in your statement, and I think you said it earlier, that once the carver test has been done and the riser installed, that the job is done. Isn't that so? You said that.
To do so, we had to take out the plugs. That's part of the job.
That's what I'm getting to. But when you install the riser, the job is done according to your statement.
Well, for that day, because they still had to come back the next day and take out the habitat.
Yes, well, you take out the habitat is removing your equipment that you had used.
Well,
and then see
that's
yours,
part
yours.
of the job. You have a permit to do all those kind of things.
Okay.
That's part of the job.
So next day there will be a permit issued to remove the habitat?
The same permit will be renewed. As I said earlier, they just renew the permit.
But it will have on that permit the added task of removing the habitat?
The permit will just be renewed. Just the way senior, they will just renew it. It may be what they're supposed to do, but what they practice and what they do is something different. The permit will just be renewed.
But it will have the following day's date? So it will have the 26th?
Correct. They will just, on the permits, if you see the original, I don't know if this is the old permit, if you moved it, right, look to the back of the page, number 1076.
Yes.
Right, you will see contractor, the signatures, the dates on top, authorized signatures and all the dates it have there.
Yes.
Right? So these dates will just be updated. The same permit will just be updated. If every permit was changed every day, they wouldn't have this space for different dates.
Right. But the only difference here is that we have one for the 13th and one for the 25th.
Because there was a gap in doing the job.
Right.
And on the day of this job now, the reason why this permit stopped for it because of the incident.
Because of the incident. I accept that. So when the riser is installed, don't you have to cut off the top of the riser to put back a flange?
Sorry?
When the riser is attached, do you have to cut the top of it
No.
to connect the pipe?
No. You would have to install an elbow on it.
Right. By welding that elbow onto it?
Bolting. Again, I wasn't there in the beginning stages of the job, so I don't know what angle if they prefab the whole spool and all these kind of things. I can't remember if the top of the spool was prefab with a flange already.
Or if it was rough.
Or if it was rough and you had to do grinding and welding.
Actually, it does not. And if it's rough, I agree with you. It have to do grinding and welding.
Correct.
Which will require a hot work certificate.
Correct.
Right. And after this permit on the resumption, when the work broke and resumed on the 25th, you know of any hot works that...
So because of the length of time the job was being stalled for, right? Those plugs would have had to come out and reinstalled because of the time it was there.
Yes, no, I didn't go there yet, Mr. Budam.
Well, I know where you're coming from, so...
Oh, I didn't realize that. But let's just stick with the permit for a minute.
Okay.
Right. The permit, the resumption of the works that resulted in this second permit being issued. You were involved in any hot works pursuant to certificate 2634?
Sorry.
Hot works permit 2634.
2634?
Yeah, remember I took you and showed you that there's the certificate for hot works?
Right. Yeah.
When you joined the work that day, the 25th, did you engage in any hot works up to that stage?
No, sir.
But there was a certificate for hot works, which would have been either be welding or grinding, I think you said.
As I explained, it would have on the type of job because they could have welding going on the barge, on the top. You understand?
Right.
On that day, we had no welding to do. All the welding and the cutting and any hot works was completed inside the habitat already prior to that day.
I was just interested in something you were taking us to, which I was not aware of. You said because of the break in the work, the plugs had to be removed and replaced? Huh? Did you start to tell us?
No. They're presuming what I told you, if after that period of time, right, has passed, right?
Which period is that?
From the length of time they install the plugs, right, to installing the flange, to installing the spool, right, to do works on top. The length of time the plug was inside there, right? Safe practice is to check the plugs, make sure the plug's still to good quality, right, and reinstall it. That's a safe practice because the job was postponed on more than one occasion.
Right. And the spool at that stage on the morning of the 25th had not yet been installed. Were you tasked to check those plugs to see if they needed to be replaced?
At that point of time, we could not disconnect the plugs as yet. We had to do the process, and the process was taking it out.
When is it, well,
we had to unbolt the carb off.
No, I didn't follow when I say didn't do the
Well,
process.
remember, the part of the job that day was to take out the plugs.
Right.
Do you understand? And after taking out the plugs, right?
Yes.
And installing the spool, they would have gone under inspection. More than likely, it will be just visual inspection.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And reinstall if needed.
So if they were because they were going to do the grinding and the cutting.
Correct. They would build scaffolding around it because scaffolding at the chamber had to be removed, scaffolding had to be built around it, and then they would reinstall the plug in a reachable manner and then continue if there are any more hot works to do on top.
Right. And the instructions you got to remove those plugs came from, what's the name of the person?
Kazim Ali Jr.
Kazim Ali Jr.
doesn't appear to me that we're going to be able to complete this man's evidence before a lunch break. And
We wouldn't say, my junior is just taking me to something else.
would you? I mean, do you think you'll be able to finish in the next 5 minutes, or do you think it'll take going to be a little longer?
No, a little longer.
All right. Well, I think that perhaps if that's a convenient moment,
Yes, sir.
we'll take our break now. I'm sorry, Mr. Boudram, but we're going to have to break for an hour for lunch, and then you're going to have to come back afterwards. All right?
I don't have a problem with this. I'm here for all of my soldiers in that pipe.
Right. Well, one thing I can guarantee is we will not conclude today without finishing your evidence. All right? Whatever happens.
Thank you.
All right? We'll make sure that happens. You won't have to return, as it were, to give evidence on another day. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take a lunch break now, and we will return at 2:10, please. 2:10.